The Venn diagram of single-player RPGs and collectible card games don't exactly overlap a ton, but that small little shared space is home to some of my favorite games of all time. Games like 2018's Thronebreaker The Witcher Tales and the PC classic adventure Magic the Gathering Chandalar. I owe my love to this little subgenre to a game I played a ton when I was a kid, and that's the game we're covering today, Yu-Gi-Oh! The Sacred Cards, released on the Game Boy Advance in 2002. Being an early 2000s GBA Yu-Gi-Oh! Game put Sacred Cards among a ton of other similar titles, but what distinguishes it from its peers, and what cemented its place as a personal favorite in my mind, was its proper story mode. Rather than just being a collection of duels accessible via menu like many other Yu-Gi-Oh! Titles, Sacred Cards couples its turn-based battles with a free-roaming open-world section. It's a very light JRPG, where you walk around and talk to NPCs who deliver the story to you and push you forward towards your next duel. So how do these duels hold up almost 20 years after release? To my surprise, I had a blast with the combat here. What needs to be understood before you pick up this title again is that the duels are not an exact recreation of Paper Yu-Gi-Oh!, but that's not to its detriment. Where Sacred Cards differs from its physical counterpart is in its changes to the phases that segment a turn. The traditionally broken down turns are a lot more free form here, allowing you to play cards and attack in any order that you please, without needing to deliberately shift from one phase to another. It's a system that's almost an exact copy of the game I covered last year, the Game Boy Color's Yu-Gi-Oh! Dark Duel Stories. Its effects here are the same as they were there. Sacred Cards trades faithfulness to true Yu-Gi-Oh! Rules in favor of quicker paced battles. Less phases to shift through means less button clicks required in any given turn, and the end result is that Sacred Cards feels downright snappy to play. To my surprise, the lack of phase structure within the turns isn't the only system that's lifted wholesale from Dark Duel Stories. Sacred Cards brings over elemental advantages and deck power as well. Elemental advantages are pretty straightforward. Each card is given a particular typing. Battling it against a card whose typing it's strong against will result in an instant kill despite any potential disparity in the card's attack power. I'm a fan of this because it adds depth to the deck construction, giving you one more thing to be thinking about if you want a truly well-rounded and balanced deck. It also gives you another option to counter specific opponents who may heavily favor a particular theme. Deck power is the concept of you having a sort of strength budget for your total deck. In addition to its attack and defense, each card has a cost just for sitting in your deck. Your deck's cost cannot go over a certain threshold, but you can increase that threshold by progressing through the story and dueling random NPCs out in the world. It's a good system because it helps give purpose to conventionally bad cards in Paper Yu-Gi-Oh! Low power cards being associated with low costs here allow you to strategically assign power in your deck. Maybe you want your deck to be super top heavy with all of the strength assigned to the most expensive cards. I ended up doing the opposite, where most of my high cost cards were the ones you can get into play without needing to pay any sort of sacrifice fee, giving me a strong early game presence that let me run over my opponents. The duels are fun here, even if they retread old ground. The emphasis on speed makes the average duel length somewhere in the 2 to 3 minute range, which felt really nice given how frequently the game expects you to duel. One of the ways that Sacred Cards seriously impresses is in its visuals, and nowhere is that clearer than the battle UI. Many other Yu-Gi-Oh! Games are satisfied with leaving generic or placeholder card photos to represent your deck and the playing field. But Sacred Cards goes all out by having the card art of your cards visible at all times. It makes a big difference for both aesthetic and practical reasons, making the game just generally way more pleasant to look at, while also giving you very easy readability into the board state at just a moment's glance. This extra room for card art comes at the cost of the hand and field size being lowered to 5 each, but it's a trade that is well worth it. Visuals also impress on the basis of backgrounds. There's a variety of different board backgrounds that can be inherited depending on who you're dueling, adding a bit of diversity to the UI every now and again. Sacred Cards' previously mentioned adventure is what makes it unique, but it's also arguably its weakest component. The time in between duels is spent talking to NPCs and following a very conventional Yu-Gi-Oh! Story. The map starts out with only a few locations, but occasionally more get unlocked as you play further along. When things in a story are happening and there is a direction in your objectives, it plays nice. Frustratingly, these objectives are more often than not extremely vague. Without any sort of quest log, you spend a lot of your time aimlessly traversing and dueling anyone you see. I remember I got stuck at one point and, not knowing what to do, I dueled every named character in the entire game. When there was still seemingly nowhere to go, I gave up and looked up what I was supposed to do online, only to then realize that the game expected me to duel Weevil 3 times for some reason. There's a card shop that you can visit to buy and sell cards, but outside of that there aren't any noteworthy locations or things to do in this open world either. No interesting side activities. It's ironic, because my childhood self loved this game because of how it used an explorable open world instead of menus, but with how shallow this world is, they might as well have been. I owe my thanks to Sacred Cards. My early fondness for it are certainly a contributor to why my favorite genres nowadays are RPGs, card games, and the few games that find themselves in between. I don't think all of its components hold up to my nostalgic memories of them, but the streamlined Dark Duel Stories battle system, coupled with an improved and more readable UI, ensure that Sacred Cards still has a reason for existing in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Pantheon.